Welcome back to the channel. As usual, for most of my wintertime videos, the heater is going to be running in the background, so hopefully the audio is okay. Today we're going to change the carburetor on our, what is this, bilt Snowblower. But this engine, it's a 5-horse Tecumseh engine, is used on quite a variety of snow equipment. Anything from Craftsman, used Tecumseh quite a bit. Here on the bilt, you'll see them on Toro. I can't even think what else. But anyway, if you have a Tecumseh engine, it's going to be exactly the same process. And for most other makes and models, it'll be pretty similar. So hopefully you find this video helpful. What this snowblower is doing in particular is it'll only run on half choke. It'll run pretty poor. So here's the choke lever, here's full choke. It'll run there, obviously. If I go to half choke, it runs best. And if I go one click below, it starts to run poor. And then all the way off, it won't run at all. So what that indicates is our high-speed jet in our carburetor is plugged up. And you can clean it, or for actually less, well, I'm saying this as a business, but for $10 or $15 you can put a brand new carburetor on it. So that's the way that I do it. It's the same amount of work minus the cleaning. You just take it off, put it back on, and you're guaranteed, for the most part, you're guaranteed it's going to work versus trying to clean it and it may or may not work. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to do it. So the tools we've got are a Phillips screwdriver, a small needle nose vice grips, a 5/16. You can either have a wrench or socket. I like a 1/4-inch drive. I use my right angle needle nose, but you don't have to have a right angle. And then both a 7/16 and a 3/8 wrench. So first thing we're going to do is just pop off our choke knob here. You can just get behind that with a flat screwdriver or pliers or whatever. It'll just slide off. Next, remove these 2 Phillips screws. Set those aside. Next, we'll remove our single 5/16 bolt here right in front of the muffler. And this, since this is right by the muffler, it gets hot and cold a lot. It changes temperature almost along with the muffler. So you may want to soak this ahead of time with penetrating oil. There's a good chance it's going to break on me today. A lot of them do. And we'll just have to figure that out later. But anyway, we're going to remove that. Looks like I'm going to get away without breaking it. And actually, in a lot of cases, that's in a slotted hole, so you can just loosen it and you can slide out your shroud from underneath that. So then you just slide it out and forward past the choke shaft there. And you can either just let that lay down there, or if you want to get it all the way out of your way, you just slide this spade connector off here at the bottom of the throttle. And that slides off. You can set that out of the way. Okay, next we want to gently, a lot of times this is your primer hose that comes from your primer button across the front of the carburetor to the primer barb. And a lot of times this hose is really fragile. So you just want to try to gently twist it a little bit to kind of break it loose and then pull it off. There's a good chance that's not going to work. In my case, I tore it. But luckily we have enough that we can just cut off what we removed and slide it back over the same spot. So unfortunately that's how those get a lot of the time. Okay, next we're going to orient our fuel hose clamp, fuel line clamp, so that we can grab it with the pliers. So I'm just twisting that around to where I can get access to it. There we go. And then we'll squeeze that and slide it back on the hose. Like that. Sometimes you'll have a shutoff valve, like a fuel shutoff, underneath your gas tank. If you don't, that's what I use my needle nose vice grips for. If you do, just turn your fuel off so it doesn't all spill out. But I use a needle nose vice grips and just pinch the hose so we don't spill gas everywhere. So now, just like the primer hose, we're going to give that a little twist to break it loose, and then try to gently slide it off. Just like that. Okay, now we have two 7/16 nuts, and they put these in the worst location. They're never accessible, but just try to get access to those however you can with your 7/16 wrench and back those off. And the reason I have the 3/8 wrench is because in most cases on the back side of your intake, so the other end of this bolt that we're working with is 3/8, so you can hold it with that while you loosen with the 7/16. But in my case, knock on wood, the bolt is not spinning, so I can just take my nuts off. But like I said, if yours spins, you're going to want to hold that with your 3/8. Looks like that one's wanting to spin. I'm going to try just holding it with my finger. Yep. And there we go. Now the last step, and I actually should have mentioned this sooner, but no big deal, is to remove your choke setup. So you need this choke bracket along with the rod, because your new carburetor is not going to come with that. So sometimes these are Phillips, sometimes they're Torx. Mine are an Allen headed, like a socket head. I want to say it's about a 5mm or 5/32. So I'm going to grab that here. I forgot about that. Okay, I will tell you what size this is in just a second. Looks like 1/8 inch. And now that I undid my carburetor, it's just a little bit loose on there, but no big deal. There we go. That'll just pull down. And when you remove your carburetor, pay attention to what hole your governor rod is being used in. There's 4 or 5 different holes on the carburetor butterfly, and you want to make sure you put it back in the same one. So in our case, I don't know if you guys can see this, it's on the innermost hole on the left side. So I'm just going to swivel that down and pull it off. I'll leave the rod, if I can, in the governor, but you can also look there, it's on the left hole. So if that falls out, we're on the left hole there, and we're on the innermost left hole on the carburetor. So looking at this carburetor, you can see it's all brown and gummy. Down in there, there's like some brown bad gas. If we look in here, it's just kind of tinted brown, and it's got a gummy kind of varnish on it. And so that's a classic indicator that the carburetor's dirty because gas was left in it, most likely year-round, is what happens a lot. You don't winterize your snowblower, leave the same gas in it year-round, and then wonder why it won't start on the first pull in the winter. And that's why. So anyway, we're going to grab our new carburetor. I should have had that ready. Can't remember which one it is. It's one of these two boxes. We'll find out here together. It is this one. First one I tried. So this, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is a very common carburetor. This particular engine is a model LH195. I'm pretty sure this carburetor is for the Tecumseh HS50, and the HS50 fits basically everything until you go up in horsepower. Then you move up to the HS, I want to say 60 for sure, HM80. But anyway, what you want to do, I won't get into this too much, but if you're not sure what carburetor your engine uses, find your ID tag. So right down here there's model and spec and all of that stuff. Just Google your model number and spec number. So in my case it's LH195SP, then a space 67514D. And then one of the websites I really like is Parts Tree. So you'll scroll down through a few results until you see Parts Tree. Open that up, and that'll give you a diagram for every part number on the entire engine. And it's kind of funny, I don't know why this is, but on a lot of Tecumseh, if not all, Tecumseh part diagrams, the carburetor is part number 380. So if you scroll through the chronologically numbered parts up to the 380th part, that'll give you your carburetor part number. So anyway, this did not come with a gasket. If your gasket tears when you take it off, make sure to replace that. And I can give you that part number here in just a second. But we're just going to reuse ours. So we'll go in the reverse of assembly on our innermost hole to the left. Slide in that governor rod. Then try to center it on the studs so we don't push those in, if I can. There we go. Well, maybe. And then we'll start our mounting nuts. So I'm just holding this right side on the back with my finger again. Got that one started. Same thing here, I can reach around to the back side and we'll see if it does spin. I'll put that 3/8 wrench on it, and if not, we're in good shape. There we go. Take our 7/16 wrench again and tighten these down. On this side, just a little thing here, but I'm just holding the throttle shut to keep it out of my way. There we go. I'll reattach my primer. Just slide that on. Reattach our choke bracket. And this is kind of interesting. You've got to pay attention on this lever, or this rod. It'll only slide in there one way, and you want this flattened portion in between the brackets, so you'll figure that out. Slide this up into the butterfly here, so the rod is going through that slotted portion, and then tighten down your bolts. I can't tell you how many times I've tightened down these bolts and not had that rod up in there, so no big deal, but just make sure you get that rod up in there the first time. Then put the bolts in. And on our fuel line, kind of a nice thing is on the old carburetor, it had a plastic inlet barb, and these are okay, but they break. The new one, at least in my case, has a steel barb, and I should have mentioned this before I put the choke on. I'm actually going to take it back off to show you guys this little trick. For whatever reason, on this batch of carburetors, and yours might come with a plastic one. If yours comes with plastic, I'd recommend leaving it alone and don't do this. But if it's got the metal one, for whatever reason it comes angled down too far. So you can take your 7/16 wrench, it fits on there perfectly, and just gently angle that more towards your fuel line, like so. Then we'll slide our fuel line on. Remove the clamp. Slide the clamp down. And then put our choke bracket back on. Now at this point, one little thing I like to check before we put our cover back on is to make sure the carburetor is functioning properly. And one way to check that is to prime it. So as long as you've opened up your fuel line, the bowl is going to fill up. You can open the choke, and then if you push the primer, you should see fuel filling up the carburetor bore. And it sure is, or the throat, or whatever you want to call it. So we're good to go so far, and that's a good indication. Okay, last thing is to put our cover back on. So if you remember, the last thing we did is unhook our grounding wire. We'll just slide that back on that spade, and then pull it over the choke rod. Come on. There we go. And slide it under that 5/16 bolt. I'm going to go ahead and start my Phillips screws before I tighten that 5/16 bolt. Put our choke knob back on, tighten the 5/16. And I said I'd give you a part number on that mounting gasket. Let me grab that here. That part number will also be listed on the parts tree diagram if you go there, but I bought these quite a while ago at O'Reilly's. It's a 2-pack. It's 7-02562-2 is the prime line number locally. The Tecumseh number is 31688. So hopefully that helps you. I'll try to focus on that. That's if your gasket breaks, and that's a 2-pack, so you've got a spare for later. Okay, we've got it all together. Let's double check our oil. I'm sure I do have oil, but I want to make sure. Could use just a touch, but I'll do that later. Let's give it a test. So, like I said before, it would only run on about half choke, or a little bit more than half choke. Hopefully, we're going to run with the choke off now. So, we'll go throttle up, choke on, prime it about 3 or 4 times, and let's start it up. There you have it. It runs great, and it's been out here in the probably 35 or 40 degree shop overnight and immediately went off choke, so that's a really good sign. Hopefully you guys were helped by this video. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know, and I'll do my best to respond and help you out. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you would, and I'll see you on the next one.